you have to be honest with yourself about why are you still here? Why are you holding on? What's really driving you? You don't feel like starting the process over with somebody else. So even though you're not feeling it with him, you're wasting him. Love is about giving, all right? So we have to ask ourselves, okay, do we know what their needs are? Are we willing to fulfill those needs? Because if not, maybe this wasn't love. Maybe it just felt good in the moment. Maybe you got caught up in the hype, and that's okay. It happens to almost all of us, if not all of us, at some point in life. But we have to just be very clear with ourselves about what's really driving the intention right now. But I think all those things I mentioned is what encompasses love, and that's like the foundation of it. And then from there, we have to look at some other things to see how we can move forward.
Oof, so many times, like, you convince yourself something's love.
Mm-hmm.
And what I find really interesting is that so many people fall in love too fast, and no one wants to go for the slow, patient, understand.
Those things take time to nurture and to make sure that we're doing it correctly for each other. So it's about learning each other's love languages and how we make it work within that dynamic. I think also because so many people are not used to dealing with emotions on that level, being that vulnerable, people mishandle it, all right? So it takes time for us to get to a place so we understand how to manage this and work through this. However, I think that I'm a huge believer in connection. And I believe connection is like your spirit recognizing its match. And it's very instant. When you speak to couples who said they experienced a connection, they'll tell you first conversation, first time meeting, first date, first week, it was pretty fast. So to me, the recognizing of something deeper being here can happen very quickly. But how we now cultivate that and how we move forward is where we need to take our time and make sure we're not rushing and overlooking certain important issues that need to be discussed and addressed first.
To me, it's the understanding of chemistry versus compatibility, and the idea that there needs to be a spark, there needs to be a connection that I feel with someone, like you're saying, on a deeper level. But I find that most people are not adept at knowing whether the connection they feel with someone is deeper or physical.
Yeah.
Like, I would say that it's easy you can often feel a spark if you meet a lot of people. You can feel a spark with a lot of people, but that doesn't mean that they're the right person to build a relationship with, right? Like,
yes. So connection to me is a very rare occurrence.
Right, yes.
So I feel that people who've actually experienced it, they can tell you maybe once in their life, if you're lucky, 2 times maybe, all right? But it's not this thing that happens with everybody. Whereas chemistry, feeling a spark, these things can happen with a lot of different people.
Yes.
So I do think there's this education that's needed to understand how we differentiate these things so that we don't confuse them. Because I see a lot of people take that chemistry and think, oh, this is it. This is the one. And it's like, but you had chemistry with the last 5 people. Why is this one the one and not them? So I do think we have to be careful with that.
Yeah, I think so. So we're on the same page. There's 3 things. There's connection on the deeper level. There's chemistry, which is like the spark on a more superficial level. And then there's compatibility, which is like what makes it last. And I can relate to that. With my wife, I definitely felt, so I'm one of those people who I kind of knew from the first few moments when I met my wife, before she was my wife, I was like, yeah, this is my person. Like, I felt that way.
Yeah.
For sure, I felt that connection. And there was chemistry there too, but it had to be turned into compatibility in order to create a long-lasting relationship. We've been together for 10 years. We're still learning, building, going through everything, but that was a big part of it. So that I can get behind. Do you see it that way too, or is there something different in how you see it?
Believe it or not, I used to make compatibility the least important, but that was because I was looking at it the wrong way. Once I kind of looked at the definition again, and compatibility is about 2 people coexisting in harmony.
Yeah.
Then I was like, okay, no, you have to have that. I got caught up more so in, like, let's say a dating site says, okay, we're gonna decide who's compatible. So I view compatible as like an on the paper, it looks good. It's supposed to match. But you can have a lot of people who are supposed to be compatible and it doesn't work.
Absolutely.
So I think that compatibility is that add-on. Once we have the connection and the chemistry, now we have to create that harmony, which is the compatibility.
Yes, I agree with you. And it is interesting how that word compatibility is thrown around. And you're so right that compatibility on paper doesn't mean compatibility in real life.
Exactly.
And to me, compatibility really has another word inside of it, which is like adaptability and that deeper understanding of an individual where you know how much you're willing to adapt around certain parts of the relationship. But we'll get to that. I think a lot of people, like, and that's where we got into this conversation around what is slow. A lot of people are waiting to feel like, is this person wasting my time or are they the one? And so they don't have a deeper connection. Maybe they had that spark of chemistry and now that's kind of subsided. How do you know if someone's wasting your time? How do you know if you're letting yourself be?
It's really driving you. Because just use an example, let's say you're a woman and the only reason why you're holding on to this guy is because he's a nice guy. You don't feel like starting the process over with somebody else. So even though you're not feeling it with him, you figure, let me try to make it work. You're wasting your time. This is where you're setting yourself up for disaster every single time. So you have to work through, but is the foundation strong enough for us to say, okay, we can make something special here? And I think once we are honest with ourselves, that kind of helps answer the question, because sometimes we get so caught up trying to analyze the other individual that it's like we get in our heads and now we're missing the mark on what's really important here. And we can't always say for sure what's going on with them. I will say that in general, if this person isn't willing to talk about things, they're wasting your time. If they're not willing to address or correct things that have been talked about, they're wasting your time. If you guys aren't on the same page about what you want and where you want to go in life, wasting time. So there are some things I think we can just look at and say, listen, this is pointless here. But a lot of times, and I have to say this, especially for women, women's intuition is extremely powerful. I'm a huge believer in it. And I feel like women know very early, this isn't it. But they rationalize reasons to convince themselves to give this man a chance. And this, again, is a waste of time because it just doesn't work. I've seen people, they just could not accept it for what it was.
Yeah, and I love that point on intuition. It's almost like when a relationship finally ends, a lot of us think to ourselves, I knew they weren't right for me. Like I knew it. I knew that they weren't the one, but you just didn't listen to that part of yourself.
Yes.
So let's break it down, the difference, because I think a lot of us just get swept up in the feeling of, oh, I'm so into that person, they're so into me. How do you know?
So I think one is, are you even being yourself, or can you be yourself with this individual? If you're presenting your representative, then this is not a real connection. This is them falling for that person that you're presenting, but that's not real. So to me, you should be already being yourself, but with that person you have a connection with, it's a more natural flow. We don't have to force it. We just feel so much more comfortable around them. Also be important if there is a connection. However, do you even know what kind of relationship they want? Do you know what kind of life they want to live? You know, are you guys really on the same page? I think connection is our paths align, our purposes align. So for us to align, we have to have a deeper understanding of where we're headed. And can we head there together?